And welcome to today's roadcast. As I said I was going to do, I'm here back in the woods above Ambergate for my stealth camp. The first thing, like I said, I haven't done one of these for a long time, but the first thing that I particularly enjoyed is the fact that I've parked the motor just back there, and all the while I'm aware that I do need to be stealthy, because you're not supposed to camp here unless you got written permission. I'm not quite sure how and where you would get that from, but the whole point of stealth camping is nobody will be able to tell that you've been here anyway. There'd be nothing to see, there'd be no vestiges, no trace that you'd ever spent the night in the woods. Anyway, it is the 21st of June, which in my calendar makes that the longest day. It's the summer solstice, always an interesting time. So it's about 5 o'clock and we've got a long evening ahead of us. I've got two sites in mind. The first one is a really stealthy one insofar as it's in the middle of a clump of bracken, and nobody, provided you keep your head down, nobody would know you were there. The other one is more interesting, and I think that's the one I'm going to go for, because it's on top of an escarpment looking down towards the River Derwent, and it's a great pitch. It's got a spectacular view, and you know, as I was saying on Thursday, it's relatively quiet around here. There's a few dog walkers, one or two lovebirds who have skipped off for a jaunt in the woods. But that aside, I'm not anticipating any interruptions. Famous last words, you might say. Anyway, I do realise that I am stepping into a whole new genre of podcasting here, which is essentially the genre known as the overnight camp or wild camping. Now, for those who are interested in that kind of thing, I have a new backpack. I've not packed it particularly well, insofar there are a few spaces inside which I should have filled, but it's not bad considering I haven't been backpacking for some time. So I've got a new backpack, which is a very lightweight one, and I've got a new tent. It's called the Lanshan 2, and it's the 4-season version. Interestingly, the tent is what they call a trekking pole tent. So as you can see, I've got two trekking poles on the backpack, and they will form the two uprights for the ridge tent. I've slowed down because I've spotted a couple of young lovers up ahead, and I don't want to get in their way. But I do have to say, it's got the makings of a great little camp. The sun's dappling its way between the trees. There's a few flies buzzing around. The lambs are barring in the field. And it's the summer solstice, which interestingly, of course, is the halfway point of the year for those who operate on the post-work schedule. Now, the other day, I did bemoan the fact that I was bemoaning the state of Nottingham, because I said I'd gone in one Friday and I was struck by the paucity of good-looking women. But last night, I went in again, second time in the space of 7 days. And this time it was to a friend's 50th birthday party, as they are commonly referred to. But I bought her a card in which I wrote the usual kind of greeting, but I basically congratulated her on the fact that she's been here precisely for 18,262 days. And as soon as I mentioned that to her, she smiled and said, "Oh, you mean shars?" And you may think, well, what's a shar? Well, a shar is the ancient day count system. I like counting in days because it reminds me a little bit of how we are almost prisoners. And is it not the case that a prisoner, as commonly depicted, will mark off the days that he's been in his cell by simply, marking on the walls It's a counting system, but this is how the ancients marked the passage of time in days long gone. Anyway, her name is Christina. We had a great time and I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it was good to catch up with my friend Robin Younger, who was at university with me. 43 years ago was when we started at Nottingham University. Remarkable, remarkable. But as is often the case with friends, you just pick up where you left off. It's all very easy and it's all very natural. It's about 7:30 in the evening of the 21st of June. And I thought I'd like to show you where my stealth camp is this evening. Behind me, just so we get the bearings here, that is west. So there, down across the Derwent River, is east, south and north. Now, I thought it was a stealthy camp. However, I was surprised by a mountain cyclist, a lad from Watnall, which isn't too far from Kimberley in Nottinghamshire, who is on his own, and he just came across my little campsite. But it wasn't a problem because he was friendly, and to be honest, there's nobody else here. I'm pretty confident when I make that assertion. We were as surprised as each other. Maybe both a bit startled. Anyway, I've had something to eat, and I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see just how stealthy it is. Right, we're approaching from the westerly side at this point. I know this camera's not going to pick it up, but through those trees, through that canopy of trees and down below is the River Derwent. And here is the site of my stealth camp. This is the new tent. It's called a Lanshan 2. It's a 2-man tent, and it coming in at just 1.1 kilos. It's very light. What we got here, a bit of evening's entertainment. G.K. Chesterton's The Secret of Father Brown. I've got a lightweight sleeping bag. There's my mat, inflatable pillow. And this is the first time I've had the tent out, so I have to say, I'm rather pleased with it. We're on a bit of a edge here. But all in all, not a bad little pitch. Good morning, and here is the view from the tent. So we're looking east, and I know you can't see much due to the canopy of the trees. Breakfast is cooking. 2 Wilson classic sausages and a large rasher of bacon is on the menu today. I have to say, this isn't a bad pitch, although it's on a slight incline, so I don't know if I'll be coming back here again. I do prefer to have somewhere more level, because of course there's the danger of, not the danger, but you do kind of gently slide towards the bottom of the tent or towards the bottom of the slope. Here's a bit of food porn for you. One classic, bacon and sausage butty. So I suppose one of the things that you never really hear people talk about when they're out camping is the essence of why they do it, what they like about it. I've enjoyed camping since I was a young lad, so you know, going back to the 1970s when I would go camping first of all with the Cubs and then with the Scouts and occasionally with my mum and dad. I think there's something about just being in a simple shelter. I mean, back in the day, they used to say you were going under canvas, and most of the tents back in the day were were canvas. The scout tents were ridge tents, like this, but on a larger scale and with a wooden ridge pole across the top. When we used to go camping as a troop in the scouts, it was almost like a military campaign in terms of the amount of equipment we would take. I mean, we even took a massive quartermaster's store, and I suppose you needed it if there were, 30 odd, 40 boys with each, with the scoutmasters as well, camping for even just a weekend. Sometimes we went to Scotland for a week or for 2 weeks. Anyway, I was just thinking, some 40 years ago, I went interrailing with my sweetheart at the time, a woman called Kathy Smith, whose birthday is tomorrow. She was born on the 23rd of June. Not that you've tuned in to listen to any of this. I just find it something it's just a thought that's popped into my head. And we got a tent. We took a tent round with us, and it wasn't dissimilar to this, but it was a dome shape. But it seems like I've gone back to the classic ridge tent. This is the first tent I bought for probably 16 years, and I have to say I'm pleased with it. These days they are nylon but coated with silicone, which makes them extremely strong and waterproof. So what is it about camping that I like? I think it's the tranquility, but I also think there's something very connecting, if you like, or there's something very resonant about it. You're in resonance with your immediate environment. And as you can see, I've chosen a forest green coloured tent, which is appropriate because I am in the woodlands today. And I just like there are many things about camping that are to be enjoyed. Firstly, the sense that you're snug in your own cocoon, on the ground, surrounded by trees or grass, wherever you might be. There's something to be cherished in that. Cooking your food outside, everyone knows that food tastes better outside for some reason. Waking up to the close proximity of the birds singing you their songs, the strangeness of the rustlings and the breezes that are going on all around during the night time. And from time to time, I have to say, even the sound of the pitter-patter rain on the fly sheet, all of these things add up to what is the essential attraction of camping, I suppose. Above and beyond that, it may well be just simply the pull of the great outdoors. And I suppose once you've done it and you've enjoyed it, then it stays with you, just as it stayed with me for these 50 odd years. I mean, just being surrounded by trees and by bracken, by these glorious ferns which are over waist height by now. That adds to the joy of it, the joy of camping. So to summarise, I've had a good night, I must admit, and I will be out on another one just as soon as I can choose another location. Good points? Well, it is a decent pitch, and I am facing east, so I did get the sun rise this morning. I've only seen one individual since I arrived yesterday afternoon and put the tent up, and that was the fellow who was on his mountain bike and had ridden across from Watnell, which is some 12 miles away. I don't expect to see anyone this morning either, so maybe there's something about the solitary nature of camping. I think it's a very individual thing to do. But one of the things that I love is that independence. It's like you've got your backpack, you've got your tent, you've got your sleeping bag, you've got everything you need to go and roam, to go wheresoever thou likest. And wheresoever thou likest, I'm taking on a Shakespearean role already. But remember, I did say last week that I am LARPing. I'm LARPing about. Camping is LARPing about. There's always little things to do around the campsite, getting your meal prepared, tidying up, making sure you've got your water supply, making a brew, as I've got here, frying your burgers, cooking your sausages. I suppose it's the simplicity of it. That is certainly part of the appeal. Got one of these coffee bags today. Earlier, I did use this coffee press. So I had freshly filtered coffee first thing. I'm now trying out one of these coffee bags from Taylors of Harrogate, don't you know? Taylors of Harrogate. It's a real live LARP. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this, but I'm someone who doesn't take milk or cream in his coffee. What I do take is a big spoonful of butter, salted butter. That, you could say, provides me with a loaded coffee. If you haven't tried it, coffee with butter is a great combination. I've been drinking it for years and years now. I'm starting the day gently and just enjoying the surroundings. I think it's Monday the 22nd today, and there's no rush for me to get off right now. Right, that is the end of this little wild camp. A stealth camp, so stealthy that, as you can see, there's absolutely no sign that anyone was here last night. The backpack is loaded, and it's a case now of heading off probably a mile or so back to the car. Reflections on the stealth camp. Very good, I would say. In fact, excellent. Stealthy, undercover, just as I expected. Only bumped into one fellow, and that was simply a synchronistic resonant encounter, so that's fine. I've just walked from the campsite to this point. It's about halfway back to the car, and I realised that these woods are actually called Shining Cliff Woods. On the way back, I came a slightly different route, and it brought me out on top of a grove of trees, I would suppose would be the best term for it. But along the edge of that grove was what might be buried in the ground, was a length of stones, deliberately placed there. I'm talking about, quarried stones, as if I was walking along the wall of some structure that had previously been buried. So once again, we're out in Derbyshire, and all the time, there's so much to be discovered, lots of hidden aspects to what you think is a natural environment, but it's in fact probably the remnants of a long ago age in which people lived on hilltops in stone structures, big megalithic stone structures, in order to stay protected from the predators. And when I'm talking about predators, I'm not talking about man or other tribes. I'm talking about a time when there were huge creatures around, huge creatures. And it's from these times we have the stories of the giants, we have the stories of men fighting dragons, and images from medieval times of knights battling giant lizards, maps depicting giant sea creatures and serpents and creatures like griffins of all descriptions. Were it needed, I'm just letting my imagination flow here, I believe that a lot of the Peak District is in fact ancient and evidence of these previous times. Yeah, we're talking of a time in which the environment and the Earth's atmosphere is very, very different to what it is today, when there was a vapour canopy over the world, which caused high levels of oxygen and CO2 to be in the atmosphere, and a light that was ultraviolet in nature. And under these conditions, the flora and fauna and mankind grew to gargantuan sizes. If you're interested in this kind of thing, and you want to see more evidence of it, then I suggest you tune in to Jason Brachier's Archaics YouTube channel, and or check out some of his books, because they are fascinating. And once you begin to put well, Jason has done it for you, once you begin to put the chronological pieces together, and once you begin to examine the artifacts that remain, the OO parts, the out of place artifacts, the curious anomalies, the strangeness of, uniformitarian narratives where we're told that coal, for instance, takes millions of years to form, and yet human objects are being found in coal seams. And he cites books, from 300, 400, 500 years ago that describe what happened during the catastrophe known as the Great Deluge. And in his work, you will see that he's identified a phenomenon, a periodic phenomenon that appears in the skies every 138 years, called the phoenix, and that it has been documented by the ancients. I mean, even now, as I'm walking along, you can see there are these stones dotted all around, covered in moss. And I think that's the sense I get as I'm walking through these places, that I'm going across a landscape that's been formed not by uniformitarian bullshit such as glaciers, water and wind attrition, but by a catastrophe, a great deluge that completely obliterated and changed the landscape forever. I mean, Jason points out that the vapour canopy is a time when all the moisture is held in the sky and it blocks out the sun. And what happens is that after a certain period, that vapour canopy collapses, if you like, and causes what is known as the Great Deluge, as the Great Flood of Noah. And so at that point, everything is reset. And Jason has identified the next Phoenix event to be occurring, well, it will be occurring in 2040, just 14 years hence. And on top of that, there is what he has also identified through his research as the Nemesis X event. And that is due in 2046. The curious and marvellous thing is that, as I was saying, I went to a lady called Christina's 50th birthday celebration on Saturday, and she immediately knew what I was talking about when I presented her a card in which I'd written down how old she was in days. She identified it as a Shah, and this counting by days was the ancient way of working out the calendars, working out the periodicity of these events that would occur in this realm. And you might say, well, the elites know about this and that's why they're so busy constructing these deep underground military bases, although they are not necessarily military bases. So I think this whole area, from what I can gather, from what I can intuit and what I can see, was subject to a cataclysm. And that includes Nottingham. Every time I log into Facebook, I'm presented with a series of reels, videos that are being filmed in the so-called caves of Nottingham, deep, deep underground. And so naturally, when I look at this, I wonder if the entire city of Nottingham has actually been buried under a cataclysm. And what we're looking at here is an ancient, really ancient substructure that, rather than being tunnelled or dug out, has been built on top of, and subsequent generations, in order to access those subterranean, what were once surface structures, in order to access those structures that are now subterranean, have had to dig down. And they go down hundreds of feet and they stretch right across and underneath the city of Nottingham. And when you begin to put all this together and you think about that as the true historical record, wow, not only does it blow your mind, it fills you with a sense of awe and a sense of how magnificent our hidden history truly is. And for all of that, I've got to thank Jason, because he's the one back in 2022 that brought all of this into my consciousness. And isn't it interesting that Jason, for a time, and for reasons I'm not going to go into now, was a prisoner in the Texas penitentiary system. And isn't it interesting that it is often, it's been demonstrated, there is evidence of it, that prisoners would engage in a day count system. They would be literally marking off the days, determining when their sentence was going to come to a conclusion. And so maybe it was inevitable that Jason would become a chronologist on the basis of his incarceration. Not only that, of course, but his access to volumes upon volumes of ancient texts, or texts from the last few hundred years, that had been donated to the library system of the prisons, which he partook of so successfully and in such great depth. So thank you for that, Jason. And Christina, great to see you on Saturday, and I'd like to congratulate you on reaching day 18,262, although it's 261 today. Tomorrow, the 23rd, will be 18,262 days here in this realm, this mathematically precise, amazing, mind-blowing and ever fascinating realm. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there for today, dear listener. So if you've enjoyed the meanderings and the stealth camp and all of this, please like, subscribe, share my video, especially if you're seeing it on YouTube. And if you're feeling particularly generous, please tip me a few quid by way of the buy me a coffee button, and drop me a line. I can be found, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my Rogue Bulletin at Rogue Mail, that's M-A-L-E, roguemail.org. And if you do that, you'll receive an exclusive bulletin every Sunday, which, as I said before, you may well enjoy with your morning coffee, your cup of tea, or whatever else it is that you partake of on a Sunday morning. And on that note, my friends, whosoever and wheresoever you are, I wish you a splendid day, and as ever, I'll catch you on the flip side.